great 4th of July to you, my friend. And to the rest of you, I hope you'll all have great holidays. We'll be right back next time. Until then, go forth and multiply.
Back to this Real America's Voice news break. I'm Terrence Bates. With the shake of a mouse and the click of a key on a laptop, criminals can steal your house from right underneath you. What's arguably even more concerning is that it can all happen without you even knowing about it. Home title theft and deed fraud is a growing epidemic, and there are few laws on the books to protect you, and that's why you have to be able to protect yourself. James Finch is an expert in information security. He's also a former head of the FBI Cyber Division. He joins me this morning to discuss. Mr. Finch, good to see you.
It's good to see you, Clarence. Thanks. Thank you for having me, Terrence. And by the way, early happy Independence Day.
Likewise, happy 4th of July to you as well. Let's talk about home title theft and how people can protect themselves, because this is really an epidemic, and it's something, unfortunately, many people don't realize has happened to them until it's too late.
This is true. This is true. And, you know, I'd like to tell your viewers about house stealing, but I would ask them, when was the last time they checked their home's title to see if their name is still on it, if they're still the owner? Let me tell you a short story about a young lady from Houston whose grandmother passed away and left her the home. Unfortunately, there were back taxes and she couldn't afford the taxes. And so the county worked out a payment plan. So she paid on this home for months in anticipation of moving in. And when she finally paid off the back taxes, she discovered her home had been stolen. She wasn't notified by the county, and now she has to find money to pay an attorney. If she had had Home Title Lock's $1 million triple lock protection, she would have been alerted when someone tried to change her title. Home Title Lock's $1 million triple lock protection monitors your home's title 24/7. And that's the first lock of that triple lock protection. The second lock of that triple lock protection is if there's any change to your home's title, you will be alerted. And if you did not make that change or authorize that change, the third lock of that triple lock protection will kick in, which is the title restoration. There's a U.S.-based title restoration team, Home Title Lock has, and they will spend up to $1 million to restore your home's title back into your good name. Your viewers should go to HomeTitleLock.com and educate themselves about house stealing and how they can prevent themselves from becoming a victim of house stealing or title theft.
So what you've just described is a proactive measure. Unfortunately, there are all too many people who have to be reactive. You mentioned the woman who lost her home and she ended up having to spend a lot of money on an attorney. I would imagine that it's rather challenging to try to get your title back once someone has taken it and signed it over to themselves.
Yes, the burden falls on the homeowner to prove that they did not take out the loans on the home that the bad guy took out, and they have to find an attorney. And attorneys, as we all know, they are not cheap. But with Home Title Lock, we will spend up to $1 million in attorney fees to restore your home's title. So that is not a worry. This is an emotional and financial nightmare. It's devastating to the homeowner.
And I think what's most important about what you described from Home Title Lock is that they are watching. They are a watchdog for you. Most of us have a dog to secure our homes inside, but this Home Title Lock is a watchdog to secure your home at the county level, if you will.
Yes, it is. And they monitor your home's title 24/7. Most people don't realize their home's title is a matter of public information. It's publicly available to anyone. And a bad guy, all he has to do is forge your name on one simple document that's downloaded from the internet, fill out that document in its entirety, stamp it with a fake notary stamp that is easily acquired over the internet, pay the small filing fee, and file it with the county recorder's office. And that's it. For all practical purposes and intent, the bad guy now owns your home.
Well, folks, if you heard that and you're not scared yet, then I don't know what to tell you. All the information is there on your screen, HometitleLock.com/newsbreak. You can go there to get all of the information you need in order to be proactive and to protect yourself and your home. Well, that's going to do it for this Real America's Voice Newsbreak. Thanks so much for being here with us.
Pride and optimism, uncontrollable enthusiasm about America's future. And on the verge of the 4th of July, that's beautiful. Kicking off the live broadcast and Real America's Voice TV and MTN networks with a growing audience that reaches globally now because of you. All right, so here are 3 big things you need to know this hour. Number 1, the Idaho monster Brian Kohlberg has dodged the death penalty, but he is not free from the wrath of his heinous crimes. Life in prison. I predict he will be killed in prison for killing 4 Idaho college kids for no particular reason. Number 2, without skipping a beat, a federal district judge just gave the finger to the U.S. Supreme Court by striking down President Trump's order preventing asylum applications from thousands crossing the border. We'll see how long that stands. And number 3, the House of Representatives is considering the Senate amended version of one of the biggest bills maybe ever. The One Big Beautiful Bill, $3.3 trillion. By the way, it made one of those hurdles at 3 o'clock this morning. Overcoming Republican rebellion to some extent. It's not done yet, but one of the key votes is done. House Speaker Mike Johnson can only afford to lose 3 Republicans in all. Storms delayed some of those lawmakers getting back to Washington, but they made it. They scrambled. They got there. There are 3 votes that need to take place. A couple that are procedural. We've gotten through those. And the final big vote that we all have our eye on, it could happen as early as this morning. President Trump working with hardliners this week to see if he can sway their vote. Congressman Chip Roy already signaled his displeasure with the bill. Ralph Norman, another. The bill gets rid of 80 to 90% of clean energy tax credits, by the way, but the Senate voted to extend subsidies for solar and wind for something like 15 years. That's something he calls a deal killer of an already bad deal, and Representatives Tim Burchett and Ralph Norman also expressing disapproval. President Trump has his work cut out for him, but some members of Congress are still optimistic that passage will happen before the 4th of July. Look, it's down to it. People like Congressman Jason Smith are on the optimistic side. Listen to what he says.
Thank you so much for being here, Mr. Chairman. I want to start with the basic math. House Republicans can only afford to lose 3 votes to pass what the Senate passed yesterday afternoon, their version of this bill. Do you have the votes to take that bill and pass it in the House right now?
Without a doubt, Dana, this bill will pass before July 4th, and the president will sign into the law on July 4th. I have not one doubt. People throughout the whole process has doubted whether we could ever pass a budget resolution. We did. They doubted whether we could pass it out of the House. We did. They doubted whether we could pass it out of the Senate. We did. We're going through this process. It's a little bit of ups and downs. That's the nature of the 119th Congress. But this bill will pass the House of Representatives and be sent to President Trump's desk by July 4th.
And that's in 2 days. I mean, that's a lot of confidence that you have there, even though there are only 3 votes that you can lose.
Yeah, well, Dana, looks like he's probably going to be right. Meanwhile, Democrats are frothing at the mouth at the possibility of Republican defectors. Democrats like Max Frost thinks he knows that Speaker Johnson will lose a lot more than 3 Republicans. Hasn't happened yet, Max, but Max likes to run his mouth. Here he is.
The other thing is we're hearing that there's about 20 Republicans, could be a little bit more, 20 okay. Republicans that as of now
they can only lose 3.
They can lose 3, 4, and it's done.
Yeah.
And Massey's already one of them. Yeah. So there's 3 more to go. We hear there's about roughly, give or take, 20 Republicans who, as of this moment, are a no. Now, we got to be honest. All the time, the moderates on the Republican side always fold. Mm-hmm. They put up a little fight so that way they have some footage that they can put behind their ads during election time, and then they fold right away. The far right, kind of Freedom Caucus folks, most of the time they fold. Sometimes they stick to it, so we'll see. Right now, we're having conversations with a lot of them behind the scenes, but one of the most important conversations and the most impactful ones are actually constituents and the people reaching out. And that's why the big strategy right now is delay, delay, delay. Every minute we keep this bill from passing, it becomes even more unpopular.
Now might be a great time to remind you that that guy, Congressman Frost, spent your money, taxpayer money, to travel to El Salvador and demand the release of a wife-beating, human-trafficking gangbanger, Kilmar Abrejo Garcia. Yeah, he's on Team Garcia, not Team America. By the way, I don't think he's any kind of authority on the state of the Republican Party and what's popular with Americans. And again, I remind you, at 3:30 this morning, they cleared the last big hurdle. He summarizes the Democrat strategy here with delay, delay, delay. It's going to be important for Republicans to get this bill right, but also refuse to play into the hands of the parties that's responsible for our nation's decline, primarily that being the Democrats. We'll keep you updated on how this plays out, but I think there's something else that we should be paying a lot more attention to, because there's something else that really is the existential threat to America like nothing we have ever seen before, so buckle up. It's newly declassified documents from Kash Patel's FBI that show that the agency blocked an investigation into China meddling in 2020's election. But why? Because the findings could have flown in the face of then-Director Christopher Wray's congressional testimony, you see. This is huge. China, once again, meddling in our affairs. Let's get to the details. In 2020, FBI officials were aware of a scheme coming out of China to influence the election in favor of Joe Biden. And I'm talking about a handful of measly social media posts. I'm not talking about that. The Chinese government actively engaged in fraud, manufacturing fake driver's licenses, shipping them to the United States so that Chinese loyalists embedded here could cast votes for Joe Biden by the tens of thousands, maybe by the millions. Agents reported that the that they were, quote, very, very confident in the source of the reporting. And in just the first half of 2020, Customs and Border Protection officers seized almost 20,000 fraudulent driver's licenses at Chicago's O'Hare International Airport. You've heard me talk about it, but we need to talk about it more. The majority coming in from Hong Kong and China. Clearly a huge story, clearly. But the FBI never released its report on the scheme. Deputy Assistant Director for Counterintelligence, Nikki Flores, pulled it. She's one of the same officers to decry the Hunter Biden laptop, by the way, as Russian disinformation. Just a little FYI for you so you know who you're dealing with. She claimed that the source needed to be re-interviewed after they found 20,000 fraudulent driver's licenses at O'Hare. Oh, we need to check that source again. Why? She also said the report wasn't ready to be put out. Why? But even when the source was re-interviewed and additional context was provided, the FBI still chose to publish the report, something that Assistant FBI Director Marshall Yates said was abnormal, not publish the report. The report originated in the FBI's Albany field office in New York, and when Albany staff asked why the report wasn't being published, they were told the reporting would contradict Wray's testimony. You see, they're defending Christopher Wray. Why? Well, I'll have to explain that after the break. The Chinese, my friends, they are the existential threat to this country. We've closed the open borders. That was number one. In this bill that we don't care for so much, for a variety of reasons, it closes the border. That's incredibly important. So take the win that we'll have a secure nation with no more open borders and endless floods of people. Despite what some courts may do and some federal judges may do, we're winning this one every single day. More on Christopher Wray in China after the break. right, so back to where we were in this conversation, which is Christopher Wray's testimony in front of Congress contradicted what was coming out in the investigation of the Chinese creating fake driver's licenses and matching those up with real names and real addresses. Oh, it was a good scheme. Obviously, it got Joe Biden 81 million votes. It was a good scheme. But it was a scheme. You see, in September of 2020, Christopher Wray told Congress this. Listen.
Is voting by mail secure?
Well, Senator, I think what I would say is this. We take all election-related threats seriously, whether it's voter fraud, voter suppression, whether it's in person, whether it's by mail, and our role is to investigate the threat actors. Now, we have not seen, historically, any kind of coordinated national voter fraud effort in a major election, whether it's by mail or otherwise. We have seen voter fraud at the local level from time to time, and so my comment should in no way be construed as minimizing how seriously we take our responsibility to investigate such incidents or the potential impact those things could have at the local level. So it's on our radar. Certainly to change a federal election outcome by mounting that kind of fraud at scale would be a major challenge for an adversary, but people should make no mistake, we're vigilant as to the threat and watching it carefully because we're in uncharted new territory. And I think as far as risk assessments of any particular state's processes or systems, I would defer to Mr. Cuccinelli and DHS CISA because that's really more in their lane.
Right, but your answer is clear. You've not seen any widespread fraud by mail, and it's something the FBI watches continuously to make sure that that's not happening. So
that's something we would investigate seriously.
Absolutely.
Unbelievable. He's right in claiming that the FBI is actively monitoring the threat because they were in Albany. August 2020, they had him. And they covered it up. The FBI covered it up because they didn't want Wray to face perjury charges. Well, guess what? That should be on the table right now. If Christopher Wray knowingly sat there and lied to Gary Peters, the soon-to-be former senator of Michigan, then they need to hold him accountable. The FBI was circulating various FBI headquarters. Wray made those comments September the 24th. The report was pulled the very next day. The very next day, that report was pulled. An email from September 30th from the Albany field office shows that when agents asked why it wasn't being published, Flores told them, quote, again, the reporting will contradict Director Wray's testimony. So either Christopher Wray had no idea what was going on in his agency or he lied. Either one is inexcusable, and the Albany officers knew this was a cover-up. One FBI agent wrote back in October, listen to this, quote, I'm not satisfied with the reasoning of needing a new 1023 and HQ review as these things are everyday operational and administrative requirements. Most concerning to me is stating the reporting would contradict with Director Wray's testimony. I found this troubling because it implied to me that one of the reasons we aren't putting this out is for a political reason, which goes directly against our organization's mission to remain apolitical and simply state what we know. And they knew. If only they had done that. But they didn't. And we're only just now finding out about it thanks to the valiant efforts of people like Senator Chuck Grassley, who chased this story down, and FBI Director Kash Patel, who said, you know what, declassify those documents. I also want to point out that Wray either was not informed on China or didn't see the need to share such important information, but felt that this talking point was important enough to bring up. Listen to this.
We certainly have seen very active efforts by the Russians to influence our election in 2020 through what I would call more the malign foreign influence side of things. Social media, use of proxies, state media, online journals, et cetera, an effort to both sow divisiveness and discord. And I think the intelligence community has assessed this publicly, primarily to denigrate Vice President Biden and what the Russians see as kind of an anti-Russian establishment.
It was never about Russia. Never. From the report. Tens of thousands of Chinese students and immigrants sympathetic to the Chinese Communist Party to vote for U.S. presidential candidate Joe Biden despite not being eligible to vote in the United States. They did. It's always Russia, Russia, Russia. He's talking about social media posts, online journals, efforts to broadcast anti-Biden opinion, whatever. But the China story is so much more than that. 20,000 driver's licenses that we know of. Maybe there's more reports that have been buried, but we know about those coming into our country to create fake votes and fake voters. This should have been on everyone's radar. So why wasn't it? How many elections has China rigged? How many? Do we know? Is there more information out there being buried and covered up? Has it not even been investigated because these partisan hacks are afraid of what they'll find? Maybe it will embarrass Christopher Wray. And why did the Chinese want Joe Biden in power so badly? Could it be that he was more than just weak? Maybe he was a pawn. Maybe he was getting paid off. Maybe that money flowing from China to Hunter Biden and Joe was a lot more valuable. A lot of questions that should have been asked by the intelligence community and the public, but instead the reporting that our tax dollars pay for was buried. And I want to see if there's going to be some arrest warrants coming out of this. Perjury, obstruction of justice, conspiracy to fraud, election meddling. Just throwing out some suggestions for ideas. It's a wonder that President Trump made it all the way to the White House at all this second time. I'm sure glad he did. So at the very least, we're starting to see proof of just how corrupt the Biden administration is, was, and always will be, and who these lackeys are, including, up to and including, Christopher Wray. The Chinese menace has not been tamed. It must be, my friends, it must be. We should celebrate Independence Day from China. That should be our goal this year. It's the Steve Gruber Show. So, thanks to my good friends at Real America's Voice. I've been on the air with Real America's Voice since 2019. Hard to believe it. Let's take a peek inside. There's still action on Capitol Hill today. It's a live feed. I believe that's going to have to be in the House, as they are debating now the bill. It went from the House to the Senate. It got through the Senate 50-50 plus one. J.D. Vance, it came back. There were some holdouts, but it seems that the bill is moving forward. 2 procedural votes have now come and gone. The Republicans have won both. The last one at 3:30 this morning, 219, 213, close. But some of the holdouts have now decided to come across the line. So there you have it. There you're watching it. You're watching the sausage being made. I have no idea what they're talking about. Doesn't matter. The question is, will this get across the line? As you heard at the top of the program here, many Republicans believe, yes, it'll cross the line today. It'll be signed into law tomorrow, the 4th of July. There's a lot of things in this bill that I like and a lot of things that I do not. I like the border being closed. I like the tax cuts being permanent. I don't like the spending levels. I'm going to just be honest with you. The idea that we're going to protect subsidies for wind and solar for another 15 years, not a big fan of that. Somebody's going to have to explain to me why that's a good idea. More debt for our children? I don't like that. Are you frustrated with the way this works? How Congress just seems all jammed up all the time. We don't get great bills off that, and it slows down. Well, take this 4th of July and learn about it from Hillsdale College. Hillsdale College has a free online course, Congress, How It Works, Why It Doesn't. It's taught by Hillsdale's own Dr. Kevin Porteous. The course reveals the original purpose of Congress, why it was created to be a slow, grinding process. It's no accident that it works this way. It's not. This course, by the way, one of 40 free online courses from my friends at Hillsdale. I've been watching them this week. They're really good. You can see the video. For those of you watching on Real America's Voice and some of the other streaming services can see how well done these are. And you can enroll for free. Take the 4th of July weekend, teach your kids and grandkids and yourself something about America, our founding, the Declaration of Independence, the people that made it great, and our government. Gruber for Hillsdale.com. Gruber for Hillsdale.com. We'll talk about our veterans next. Welcome back to the program. For any of you that have been watching, and for those that maybe don't know, I had a fire in a rental house here a few months ago. What an upsetting experience that is. It was a wall fire, an electrical fire, and the damage was remarkable. I've never been through such a thing. So then you got to deal with the insurance company, and then you got to say, well, who's going to fix this? And it's just very, it's stressful to say the least, right? Well, I found a company along the way that I just had to brag about a little bit. I'm going to spotlight a company today that's not only a leader in property restoration, but a champion for the nation's veterans, right? PuroClean, known as the paramedics of property damage, they have rapidly ascended in the industry. They're ranked 154th now on the Franchise Times 2024 Top 400 list, and that's a lot of folks out there. They've made a significant leap, up 38 spots from last year, but beyond their impressive growth, PuroClean, they're making waves with this program called PuroVet. It's designed to help America's veterans transition from military service to business ownership. And joining me today are Steve White. He's the president and COO of PuroClean. He's also a proud former U.S. Army captain. And Paul Edelstein, he's the director of the PuroVet program and director of communications for the National Veteran Business Development Council. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Steve, thank you.
Well, as you guys know, I've been through this process, and it has been remarkable. You guys came out, you were fast. In fact, I had Frank Torrey, the guy that owns the companies, call me on a Sunday and say, hey, how can we help? I've never had that happen before. Somebody that owns a company say, hey, how can we help you? You're in a time of need. I know it's stressful, right there on the phone. So, Steve, for those unfamiliar, tell me about PuroClean and its recent achievements.
Well, water, fire, mold damage, biohazard damage happens around us every single day. And you mentioned our tagline, the paramedics of property damage. You know, if something happens to your physical person, you can go to an emergency room, but you can't take your home or your office to an emergency room. So you call the paramedics of property damage, and we send a crew, and we begin the cleanup process. It happens every day. Somebody's got to take care of it. It's an emergency service. That's why you got to call from Frank on a Sunday, because we have to be 24/7, 365 in this business all the time. You know, stuff happens where you live or where you work. You often can't work or live there again until we come and clean it up. It's what we do. We have set ourselves up as a franchise to enable rapid expansion. We now have 500 locations across the United States and Canada providing this service every single day. We're known for our award-winning training, our support programs to our franchisees all across the U.S. and Canada, and we're recognized as one of the absolute top performers, not just in franchising in general, but in property restoration today.
Sure, and I can tell you, folks, I have been impressed. And look, I'm not easily impressed, but these guys, the owner calls on a Sunday, does Frank Torrey. Their team is out there the next day as he promised. They've walked through the process. They've walked me and Ivy through step by step. Here's what we're going to do. Here's how it's going to be handled. Here's what the insurance company has to do. It's been professional, to say the least, right? So I want to discuss this PuroVet program, though, because you guys have done something different here, and this was really intriguing to me. You're reaching out to veterans saying, hey, look, vets, we're expanding our company. 500 offices now. We'd like to have a lot more. We'd like veterans to be a big part of what's going on here. So, Steve, what created this inspiration?
Well, it's inspired by Frank Torrey, who you just mentioned. Frank's dad served in the Marine Corps in World War II in the Pacific Theater and was part of an elite unit called Carlson's Raiders. Actually, there was a movie made about them after World War II. And that service and lifetime of being involved in veterans' causes after he came out of the Marine Corps in World War II, you know, in turn inspired Frank's patriotism and want to do things like this. You know, and we're very excited to be able to offer this to my fellow military veterans. You know, about 7% of the U.S. population has ever served in the United States military. 14% of all PuroClean locations are owned by a military veteran.
And I want to bring Paul into the conversation here. Paul, look, it's a big undertaking, and I think that a lot of people watching this are going to be, that's a great idea. Let's get the vets involved and see if we can set them up for long-term success after they serve this country. So let's talk about strategic partnerships and your goals. How many veteran-owned franchisees do you want?
Our goal is to get 100 veteran-owned system franchises in our system. So under Frank's leadership, the big thing that we've done is we've created numerous strategic partnerships in the marketplace, namely partnership with the council called the National Veteran Business Development Council. What that enables our veteran franchisees to do is access corporate supply chains. So set aside contracts in restoration. Once they are certified by this council, they're able to access additional revenue generating opportunities So we're basically doing everything we can to help veterans succeed in this industry. Outside of giving them 25% off the franchise fee, we have mentorship opportunities. We offer training and support. We've just launched something called the PuroVet Forum, which is basically a weekly forum where we empower our veteran franchisees to really understand the system, to really understand how to generate revenues through the supplier diversity program. So basically, our goal is to get 100 in our platform this year, but we're not stopping there. As Steve pointed out, we're on a rapid growth, and our goal is to get 200 within 2 years.
Well, that's remarkable. You're talking basically 1 in 5, 20%. If you've got 500, now I'm not real great with math, but 100 out of about 500 would be about 20%. I can do that math. That's remarkable. So 100 in the short term and 200 veteran-owned businesses in the more extended term. That's pretty remarkable, Steve. And these veterans receive not just the benefits of the PuroVet program, but they get to own businesses. They get a chance to go out there and really have an impact on their communities and be successful, right?
That's right. And they pretty easily shift their mindset from a mission to serve their country to serving their local community, because these are services that are really important in local communities all across our country. And they're pretty successful. As Paul said, we have a new PuroClean Veterans Forum that we started 7 or 8 months ago, and now we're talking to each other. We have side sessions just for our veteran franchisees at our recent company convention in Dallas. And so we'll do everything we can. We help them with financing on the way in, anything we can do to help them. We feel like we owe it to them. And in turn, a lot of them want to hire military veterans as employees of their businesses.
There you go. I mean, this is a big strategy for veterans. Paul, I want to bring you in again. Look, you look 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. What is the broad vision for PuroVet? Maybe 10 or 15 or 20 years down the road.
Absolutely. The goal is to create the largest platform, the largest military community in the franchising industry, in the restoration space. So our goal, of course, is not to stop at 200. Our goal is to continue growing this program, really to give our veterans the opportunity to succeed. Just like Steve pointed out, it's a business, it's a family legacy.
Absolutely.
It's an ability for them to serve their community. So, of course, we're not stopping at 200. Our goal is to basically become the largest veteran platform for property damage restoration.
And that's a great goal. Listen, guys, if you've been watching, if you're a veteran, you know somebody, here's what you need to know. PuroVet.com, PuroVet.com, or you can call 855-PuroVet. You can get comprehensive information or contact them directly. Look, these guys are doing great work. Steve, Paul, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you taking the time. We'll have you back because this is just step one to getting some veterans on board. Guys, thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Again, it's PuroVet.com or 855-PuroVet. PuroVet.com or 855-PuroVet. What a program. This is The Steve Gruber Show. Taking up the conversation again and trying to defend this republic. We do it every day here. So my next guest is right in the front lines doing that himself. Lee Smith is a best-selling author, investigative journalist. America's Future, the national leader in the fight to preserve individual rights and promote American values and traditions that protect the nation's constitutional republic, is launching Roots, Rights, and Reason. Roots, Rights, and Reason. They just launched this initiative just this week, in fact. Lee Smith, welcome to the program.
Steve, thank you so much for inviting me on today. I really appreciate it.
So tell me about this effort, Roots, Rights, and Reason. I mean, we've got a nation today where you've got communists leading the race to be mayor of New York City. You've got rioters tearing down Los Angeles and being told that's okay. We've got illegals in the country being told, hey, you can use all the public funds you want. We've lost our minds as a country. Are we even a constitutional republic anymore?
We are, and that's one of the purposes of Roots, Rights, and Reason, to give everyone, to remind people what we are as a country. A lot of people look around and say, this doesn't even look like a real country anymore. It looks like a madhouse, as you were explaining. You look in New York, what's happening, who won the Democratic Party primary there, and the different people who are now supporting him. But our purpose is to go back to our foundations. That's the roots part. And remind people where we came from and where we ought to be going, to give people basic resources, whether we're talking about the Bill of Rights, whether we're talking about the principle of checks and balances or separation of powers, whether we're talking about the history of tariffs in the United States. So we really try to ground people in the history and the foundations of our republic.
All right, so tell me what it's going to be and how is this initiative rolling out? I mean, I know that it's out there on podcasts and so forth. Yeah. It'll air Wednesdays, correct? americasfuture.net/podcast, correct?
That's right. We're going to be doing it on Wednesdays. And our first show was the 2nd of July with the chairman of the board of America's Future, General Michael Flynn, and he also has a new book out. So really interesting conversation. Then in the upcoming weeks, again, we're going to be talking about tariffs. A lot of people don't understand them. A lot of people don't understand what role they played in American history. We'll be talking about separation of powers. So again, Bill of Rights, very, very fundamental stuff, just to give people some understanding of what our foundations actually are, and whether that motivates people to fight harder, or whether it just, again, gives them a stronger footing to understand where we are and where we ought to be going. That's important. What we want to do is we want to stay away from the nuttiness, the political fights. We want to give people, again, firm footing where we are and where we should be going.
All right. So what are some of the lessons we're going to learn here on your podcast on a weekly basis? Give me an idea of some of the civil liberties, the corruption, the people who should be held accountable. Now, look, I know, talking about the mayor, the Democratic nominee to be mayor of New York City. I don't know that he's going to win yet, because I think that Eric Adams might come back and beat Zoran. We'll see. But America is promised in this document that I have on my desk called the Constitution, a Republican form of government. It's guaranteed here. You cannot be a communist or a socialist nation according to the United States Constitution. Yes?
This is one of the things that we're trying to give people. Again, if we look at how Mamdani came here to the United States, if we're concerned about the open borders and how that affects the country, right? A lot of people talk about, of course, it affecting the workforce, but it also affects our values as well. If you look at the different third world values that have been imported, that have been smuggled here over the last several decades, right? This is important to understand. What What is this country about? What is the country based on? It's certainly not based on third world values. That's the sort of thing we're supposed to be keeping out. What is Republican form of government, and why is it different from the third world? If we're talking about Mamdani specifically. But again, we're really going after very basic stuff. We want people to understand. We want viewers to understand where we are, why we're different, why the United States is the greatest country in the history of the world, and why, among other things, we need to be guarding against third world invasions.
Well,
and
the
why
third world
different
invasion
Americans seem to be supporting this.
Yeah, the third world invasion, to be fair, began in 1965. Lee, that's when we changed our immigration laws. 1965, Lyndon Johnson signed this into law. We stopped importing the majority of our people from Europe and started focusing on third world countries, didn't we?
That's absolutely right. The Immigration Act of 1965, and these are the different things. Look, again, this is what we're going to be covering, the basic stuff. Why does our country look the way it does? Remember during the remember shortly after Donald Trump was elected, there was a lot of debate about the H-1B visa program, right? Elon Musk and a lot of the tech guys had one position on it, and a lot of MAGA people had another position on it. What is the H-1B visa issue? Where does that come from? Well, that comes from the 1990 Immigration Act. So again, to get people back to fundamentals so they understand, at least they start with an understanding. Of course, it's important, it's vital to be outraged, but to have the facts, to know where these things started, that's how you actually fight, and that's how you actually contest it, by resting on very firm foundations.
Yeah. We need to rely on the Constitution, but another red flag, clearly, we had a justice of the Supreme Court of this country openly show on Friday of this past week she doesn't care about the Constitution. She was ripped apart by 6 other justices on the court for not even caring what's in the Constitution. Ketanji Brown Jackson doesn't care about the Constitution, and that's another problem, isn't it?
That may be as large as half of the country right now, right? I mean, we saw what happened during the Biden years, the different violations of essentially overturning the rule of law and our justice system. So this is, again, this is very important. We know what the fight is, right? We know what the fight looks like. What we need is the details, and that's what we're going to do. That's the point of Roots, Rights, and Reason, to give people the details. Here's where we came from, and here's where we are, and here's where we are supposed to be going.
Yeah, Lee Smith, greatly appreciate you being here, my friend. It is Roots, Rights, and Reason. It's out there right now, americasfuture.net/podcast. You can see it now, sir. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it.
Greatly appreciate it. We'll be right back. be keeping an eye on what's going on in the House. They got through a procedural vote early morning. You can see that they're there at this hour. Democrats hating the bill, of course. Republicans saying we need to get it across the finish line. And there's some things in this bill that I really like. The permanent tax cuts. Making the border secure. Doing real reform on the border, making sure that it's secure. But there's some things I really don't like. Including the state and local tax write-off, up to $40,000 now. The SALT tax write-off, $40,000, so that low-tax states subsidize high-tax states. On the eve of the 4th of July, I say be careful out there. There's the headline out of California, 7 missing. An evacuation order in place after a fireworks facility in Yolo County, California, went up about 6 o'clock local time yesterday. Pretty crazy. It's just devastating, this fireworks operation. Here's some good news for you. Now through the 15th of July, Gruber listeners and viewers, you guys, get 25% off a 20 or 40-day customized weight loss program from My Pure Health Solutions. The same program I did in 2018, before I was even on this television network. Find out why your metabolism is broken and how My Pure Health Solutions turns it back on for good. They uncover the real reasons your body holds on to fat, like hormones, inflammation, and so much more. It's a great program. You don't need to exercise, but you get to eat real food, not replacement shakes and garbage. Real food, real results, and a weekly one-on-one coaching session to keep you on track. Now with breakthrough tech to reactivate your stem cells as well. Trust me, this program works. If you do this program, it works. It worked for me. How do I look 7 years later, right? Right. Get started. GruberHealth.com. Be summer ready from anywhere in America. 50 states and counting, by the way. GruberHealth.com, GruberHealth.com. Do that. Remember to watch us live on YouTube, Facebook, X. The Steve Gruber Show is 3 hours of pure pleasure every day, and you can be part of it. I'll be right back.